Hey, y'all. This is Reverence for Impulse, and I'm Weena Pauly-Tarr. This podcast is my attempt to more deeply understand and explore impulse through conversations with people that inspire me. We step into connection without any planning or agenda, but with respect for the impulses that brought us here and shape how we are when we're together. I'm so glad you followed your impulse to listen in. Oh, how do I begin to introduce this radiant man that is David Thomson? Well, he is an interdisciplinary performing artist and creator. He's a Bessie awardee who's worked extensively across the fields of dance, music, performance, and theater. He also initiated the Artist Sustainability Project to expand the discourse and practice of financial, artistic, and personal empowerment within the arts community. And David is a dear friend. He's worked for all the dance greats. He's traveled around the world performing. And that's how I met David, dancing. He was invited to rehearsal, and I remember I watched him move and had this really profound internal emotional reaction to seeing him. Like I might have even cried a little bit. His body is so full of story and time and experience. He's simply a gorgeous mover and human. We began dancing together in 2019, and there was kind of an intense sibling connection. Like we could have deep love for each other and also drive each other a little crazy, and always with deep respect. Cut to about 5 years later, and we're still practicing authentic movement together. And I just saw him perform a stunning solo just a few weeks ago. The thing about David that is special to me is the time that he takes to care. It's something I've never really felt so clearly in someone. His care comes in ways that he spends his time, like bringing a full thermos of his famous hot chocolate to rehearsal for everyone, or emailing me a recipe step by step, complete with photos of his amazing French salad. He takes his time, and being with him shifts my relationship to time and the timing of being with someone. He is well known for his gifts to the dance world, but he's also well known for his deeply caring heart and brilliantly wise mind. And for me, his thoughtful care through time.
You do. You should look around at people.
Okay. Get them in. Get the drops in. You know what we started using are those little the tubes, like the individual ones. I have guilt
really?
about the waste.
Yeah, I had guilt about that too. I was like, I don't know.
Every little plastic thing, but apparently
Also, they get so small. I'm like, where to go?
I know.
Well, go ahead. Do you like them?
Whatever.
Yeah. Oh, whatever. It's all good. We're here. Oh, wow. Hi, Weena.
Hi, David. So I'm just going to say for people who are listening that David and I'm in David's house, and this is the first in-person podcast I've done. And it's already worlds away, very different, not worldly. You're worldly.
We're worldly.
We're kind of worldly. Worlds away from like being on Zoom. And I was thinking how much on the drive over that I appreciated you like kind of stating that as a request. Like, no, it has to be in person.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because you're like, I think it would have been easy for me to just keep doing Zoom, but being asked to show up in person feels so different. Mm. And the way we just came, you had tea for me, I brought breakfast, and then we got on the floor and did what we've always done, which is stretch and move around while we're connecting and talking.
And it's this thing where, I've been in the last few years really thinking about transmission. How are we, all of these invisible things that happen when two bodies are sharing a space or sharing an energetic space, two organisms being in realm. And to me, that also connected to the concepts of quantum physics, where there's a multiplicity. It's not binary. You can be in multiple states of being at the same time, as well as you have these 2 points that could be very separated in time and space, but they're actually constantly connected energetically. It's, when I think about, twins who can feel something, even though they're in different countries. And I think there are capabilities that we have not really, quote, scientifically recognized, but we have organically recognized in our histories. And when I think about the digital age and how our lives have been transferred into these digital spaces of content production, what are we really missing being together? How are we missing the concepts of really being with each other and feeling each other? I see so many parents now, and they're walking with their kid and they're on their phone, or someone's just swinging their kid on the swing and she's just looking at her phone and blindly swinging the child. Or you see the child and the parent and they're both on their phones. And I go, wow, so you're so involved in this machine, you're losing your concept of connectivity, of even this sense of what it's like to just be and breathe with someone else. And yeah.
What do you think of, so because I can relate to both sides of that for sure, but there's this, at its core, there's an impulse towards something. So like, there are two things you said. One was about content, like even the word is sort of triggering. Right. Because of how much, if you have the perspective of capturing your life via audio or video, then you are with that filter of what makes good content in everyday interactions, just like preparing food. You're thinking about, ooh, good content. Like I could take a pic. And it becomes this, you're qualifying your life in these everyday moments of like, this would be good content, or like, oh, this thing just happened with my daughter and now I'm going to talk about it because that's good content for what I'm doing. It is a wild sort of extraction of your own life made public. And I get it. It's about sharing and stories, and that's what connects us so much.
Is it really about sharing and stories?
Yeah.
Or
well,
is it about attention
and maybe economy? Like, is it about selling?
Partially it's about selling, and partially it's about attention. I feel
attention towards,
it's attention towards, like, how many clicks did I get on this? And am I still in the world? Because I'm so busy, I don't have time to be in the world, but I'm going to do this so that the world can see what I'm doing. Right? And is that partially, and again, I'm being kind of flip with this, but also serious, of how do you discern those intentions? Because they're sometimes so close, of like, I'm sharing it, but I want you, it's like your child going, mommy, 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 did you know, mommy, 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 did you know, mommy, mommy? And you're like, honey, I'm working on this, mommy, mommy. And they're like, they want your attention. They want your attention. What does that mean? You mean something to them and they want to show you who they are. And that's a beautiful, I think, open thing. With this, I think it has that, but it's also, there is this line, and forgive me, feel free to cut me off, this idea of, when you're saying commerce, commerce is being driven by ego, about what you look like. You're not just going to put something on there if you don't feel like it's good. So it's about an ego. It's like, you're not showing, like, maybe you're showing yourself in the hospital, and that's a different type of sharing. Last sidebar. I'm sorry. It's like I was on actually Instagram, and there's this guy who's doing a series of like bumping into a wall in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, whatever. And each time the reaction kind of became amplified until, it's this day and age, and he bumps into the wall and he falls down on the floor in the kitchen floor, and he's like, ah, and then he pulls out his phone and he clips an image of him being traumatized. And it's like, oh, the drama, the film, we're creating our movies. I went off on that tangent.
Well, it's very you though. I feel like this is not new for us to have a conversation where I'm like, David's a Luddite.
But I'm really a techno person.
I know. Well, but what's interesting is I do value so much. I think your perspective is, it's not like I haven't heard that argument, but coming from you, who holds a specific view and has lived a certain amount of years, I feel like it's weighted differently. It's not flippant. It's like, to me, it feels like, not looking in hindsight, but you're a little outside the fray. You're not right up in the mix, which gives you the advantage of perspective that is valuable. And you're also around and inside a lot of these younger spaces. So it's not like you're, living in an intentional community of like people 60 or older. You're like up in the mix. You're with students, you're dancing with younger people, and it's all around you. And I've always noticed and sort of respected your resistance to it in a way, or at least thoughtfulness. I mean, here's an example.
But I love it. I love hearing
your tell me more.
Yeah.
I always notice if I text something to you, or like today, there is thought and care put in your communication, in your agreements and obligations, that feels different to me than younger people.
Oh, interesting.
And maybe you could say, well, I don't have children, I have more capacity. Maybe. But it also feels, when you're the recipient of that, it makes me want to be better and more thoughtful about how I communicate, not just with you, but with other people. There's so much action of communication going on. It's hard to take time to do that. And I see you like taking time and saying no to stuff so that you have a little space to do it.
Or I have a different space, because I tend to pack things up. I tend to be busy in different ways. I'm also more of an introvert, so all of that exterior stuff is crazy. I mean, and I'm not, I'm very much in a kind of overload of tech, because I have like 6 different email addresses. And then if you work in an academic institution, you're like bombarded by emails. And so I segregate some of them to personal, financial, subscription, so that I know, like, okay, if I look at this email, this is where I'm getting. This, also if it's bombed out, then I know what I can shut down and what I need to worry about. But there is this overload of, if you get 300 emails a day, what's that time? Why are we using that time to delete 300 emails? If I have to delete even 100 emails that are like asking me for money, or like, oh, well, no, new advertisement. Back in the day, you get junk mail, you pick it up, you look at it, you throw it out. Here, it's like, I actually have to physically go in and click and delete.
You are, okay, let's look at my email. For real.
Okay.
Look at how many unread. You could say that out loud.
12,716.
No, here.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's 35,935.
Unread emails. Well, because I don't take the time to throw them out.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean, like the time of dealing with communication that you do. I think it's unique.
I don't know. I don't know how unique it is. I think there are a lot of people who probably don't deal with that in the same way.
You look alarmed.
No, I don't look. I mean, I have like 22.
Okay.
So
good. I feel better.
Yeah. Because I really actually sit and I do delete a lot.
Wow.
I do group like
Yeah.
searches, and I'm like, okay, delete those 50, delete that 100. So I try and knock it down.
But it takes time.
Oh, mother of pearl. Who, and like I could be doing something else, but maintenance.
Words. Why?
Words. Attention. Let's get back to attention.
Okay.
Because each of those damn emails takes up your attention.
Yeah.
And so even just reading that and figuring out, is this good or bad? Do I need it? Should I delete it now? Okay, boom. That's like 5 seconds, if you can do it that quickly.
Right.
And so that's 5 seconds, multiply that by 20, that's 100 seconds, it's a minute, and like, so this is, and again, I think my perspective is based on having grown up in a whole different era where time was very different. And
tell me about growing up. Like, you grew up.
I grew up in the Bronx.
You grew up in the Bronx. Were you born?
I was born in the Bronx, and then grew up there. Lived there until I was, well, I went off to college when I was 17. I went to
Early?
No.
Oh.
I graduated from I didn't skip a grade.
You
I chose not to skip a grade, actually.
Mm.
And because then I would have been in the same grade as my sister, which I didn't want.
Okay.
So anyway, so yeah, no, I think because of my birthday, I started school when I was 4, as opposed to 5. Anyway, all of that.
Were you a mover when you were
physically?
little? Yeah.
No. I was totally in my head. I was totally non-physical.
Wow.
Most of my life, I was very non-physical.
What?
Just did not. My body was totally alien to me. Actually, I take that back. There were glimpses of, I wasn't physical, I never did sports or anything else, but I have this one memory that I always was like, oh, that's fascinating. Where there was this one summer day and people were playing around outside. I just went back to my room and laid on my bed, and I worked on releasing every single muscle in my body, starting with my legs and moving up to my chest. And I was like, I don't know where that came from, but I was like, oh, let's just do that. Like, see if we can just release all of those.
How old were you?
I was maybe, I'm going to say 12, maybe 13, maybe.
Did you like it? Do you remember being like,
oh my God, it was amazing, because you're like in this beautiful floating space when you're laying on your bed and you actually can, and it's also funny that I think that I had that access to do it.
Yeah. That you weren't told, here's what you need to do.
No.
You just,
So that was my only real physical engagement with my body somatically. And then beyond that, I never really played sports. Handball in high school, that was it. We had a 4-roll handball court, and I did do a little gymnastics, mostly on the parallel bars and whatever, but minor. I'm not physically coordinated.
That is not true.
Well, let's say sports-wise, I wasn't physically.
Then when did you find dance? So you grew up in the Bronx, and then
the truth of the matter is, I don't tell many people.
Okay.
I normally say I started dancing in college, which is for the most part true. In junior year of high school, I was in the drama class, and
of course,
wasn't really interested in drama. I took it. I was like, wow, this is interesting. Working against myself, but or maybe knowing more about myself than I actually did. And so there was a woman in my class, Carolyn Brown, this Black woman, and we had to do presentations, or she did a presentation, and so she did this little dance on point, and I was like, wow, that's really amazing. Where did you learn how to do that? She's like, I've been studying with the Dance Theater of Harlem. I was like, wow, that is so cool. And I had been working at a library since I was 14, because I said I needed a job. And I saved up money, and I basically bought a 2-week workshop in modern, beginnings workshop in modern and ballet for 2 weeks at Dancer of Harlem, the summer after my junior year in high school.
You were 16.
I was
15.
16. Yes, I was 16.
Wow.
Yeah. And so.
And did you get yourself there? And
I got
you were
myself
kind of,
there. Yeah, and I was pretty independent. And so I would go there, take class. I didn't know anything. I was just following form. I was like, I don't know. Okay. Physical. I can't even remember my one memory of that is I think I was at the bar and I was sickling my foot because I was like, oh, my point looks much better that way from my angle.
right. Which, as we know,
is
you get screamed at for sickling your foot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and so that was the introduction.
Did somebody say something? Or your memory is sickling?
Yeah, and then Walter Raines corrected me on that. And yeah.
What, you don't remember what it felt like to be
dancing?
to be around all these dancers and introduced to this whole world of.
It was extremely alien, but it was also kind of sexual.
I was gonna ask.
Because there was this whole sense of like suddenly more access to gay men, and I wasn't out in any way. And I was like, and there was this guy I had met there, and I think he lived in the Bronx as well, and so we'd go down, we'd hang out a bit. He was very cute, this Hispanic guy, very cute. Well, crush on him, but I was so shy, shy. And then I remember there was this one dancer with DTH and very handsome, muscular guy, and he started hitting on me, and I was like so overwhelmed. He's like, can I help you with that dance belt?
Oh, gee. I mean, borderline pred.
Yeah. I'm like,
wait, how old was he? 20s.
How old was he?
Yeah.
Oh, at least in his 20s.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I was 16.
That's hilarious.
Like, no, it was totally hilarious. And I was just, and again, if I had been more savvy about certain things, my life could have been different. I mean, sexually. But it's fine. Everything worked out as it needs to work out, I believe.
Were you like waking up to your own sexuality then? Or were you sort of like flirting with the idea? Or were you like, no.
Oh, no. I knew since I was in like 3rd grade.
Oh, okay.
But I just never knew how to act on it. I mean,
right, sure.
To me, my sexuality was about love. It wasn't about sex.
Yeah.
It was really about being loved and loving somebody.
Yeah.
So the idea of the sexual urge is like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess we can do that. I guess I was much more of a romantic than like sexually like not to say I wasn't attracted to guys. It's just I would have been more of a let's date rather than hook up.
Yeah.
And
your family very Christian.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they weren't surprised. I mean, they weren't surprised, but it wasn't. I wasn't like overt in any way. And I went to church every Sunday. I played for church at times. Yeah, I was very good at creating form and presentation.
You still are.
I'll take that as a compliment. But yeah, no, you create what you want people to see.
Do you feel like that? I'm sure, but how do you feel like that informed your dancing? I mean, it's a kind of theater.
Dancing became, and again, I think I'm really slow. I'm just very slow about recognizing certain things. I feel for me, dancing is something that I almost did unconsciously, and my body and my brain followed along, but I did not consciously think, oh, I really want to dance.
That's my dream. I'm going to be a
Oh,
dancer.
yeah, no,
No.
no, 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 no.
Yeah.
And even, as recently as like 5, 7 years ago, I remember finding myself in a studio and I looked in the mirror and I was like, is this what you're doing? Literally, I was like, wow, this is what became of you. Wow. It's almost like part of me from my past appeared in my head and is looking and going like, wow, so that's what you're, oh, it's fascinating. Would never have thought of that. Um, and even when I was in college, I changed my degree from dance to liberal arts because I didn't think I was going to be a dancer. And I also didn't want a dance degree because
What the hell are you going to do with that?
what the hell? Really? What are you going to do?
Really?
I'm already Black. They're going to look at me and then say, oh, you have a dance degree. That's really cute. We're not going to hire you, but thank you. Thank you for applying. And also, there are other things I wanted to study while I was there. So let's mix it up. But yeah, I think it's an ongoing discovery for me about what I want to get out of it and what I discover about myself. And I think of my life as being somewhat of a Forrest Gump story where I just happen to be in this place or that place where I work with that person. And I work with them because I think some of the work is interesting, their perspectives, or you're working in their language or what they're playing. Like when I first came out of college, I danced with Kevin Wynn a bit. I did a little thing with Lamone. And then I, danced with BB. And I was like, wow, this physicality and the way you move and thinking about time and like, okay, we're going to do this phrase on a 7. And then we're going to take the same phrase and do it on a 4. And you're like, wow.
It's brainy.
It's brainy, but it's so also because her movement was also very physical in a way that I was like
muscular.
It was, and I was hungry for that. And I didn't know how to describe it. I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
And then, I also worked with Jane Comfort at that point. And for me, that was a mixture of language and movement. And so there was more of an abstraction within that. And I love language. And so it was a great challenge in that way. And also, I think the issues she was dealing with within the work also were very thoughtful about like, where do you, the first piece I did with her was Artificial Horizons. And it dealt with this idea of like, who's telling you about the future, whether it's a fortune teller, politician, the weatherman, interspersed with all of this, like a fortune teller, where do we place our hopes and expectations and what do we consider facts? And a certain kind of capitalism within that. So yeah, I just followed desire. It wasn't like I was trying to create a career.
Right.
I was just following desire and simultaneously working in other jobs.
Well, and something in you made space or trusted that impulse enough to pursue it. Or it sounds like it wasn't even a sort of internal dialogue of like, I should show up here because I really want to do this. You would just find yourself there. I mean, sure, there's a element of like, I should do this because this makes sense if I'm dancing.
Sometimes, I mean, it's a balance. It's never pure. I mean, some cases it's like, oh, this is interesting. Like, someone had recommended me to work with Remy Charlotte. And I didn't know anything about him really. But sure, it's a job. Oh, it's a nice job. We're performing at BAM. Okay. And Interesting Men, it was a 10-man project. And it was 1984. And I think there was an innocence of like, oh, wow, this is okay. It's a job. We'll do this. Because you need a job. And in others, it was, there are not many people actually auditioned for in the course of time. I think it was
invitations or
invitations
people,
or somebody saw you like, hey, do you want to do this? Blah, blah, blah. you know, there are a few. I auditioned for Jane, I auditioned for BB, I auditioned for Trisha, I auditioned for, yeah, back in the day it was, excuse me, more of a blur,
Mhm.
you know, but I mean, how was it for you?
I mean, similar in that, like, I didn't move to New York to be a dancer because that was my dream. It was like, I don't know, I'll just go see what happens, kind of.
Did you want to dance?
Yeah, but I wasn't like, I have to do that.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was like, I like it, I enjoy it, and I could see myself doing other stuff. Um, it's not, I feel deeply at home in dance, but it's not like, I remember looking around and seeing those people who were very driven
Yeah.
and hungry.
Oof.
And
Ooh.
and you're kind of like, yeah, no, that's not me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, like,
I'm gonna
you're
be
a
back here.
dancer.
Yeah.
I'm just the dilettante. I'm just doing this.
I'm okay. I enjoy it, but
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I think and similarly, like, I stumbled into Strab and had never seen it before. I didn't know what it was when I auditioned for it. So, you know, I was up for whatever. The first company I danced with in New York was a West African dance company, because that's what I had the most experience doing.
So amazing.
It's strange. And then
how did that feel culturally for you?
It was complicated, but me as a little white girl from Atlanta dancing, you know, I just loved it so much.
That's brilliant.
I was in high school when I had my first African dance class, and I had never felt more at home. It was low and it was muscular and it was in my legs, and I felt it.
I got this.
And I just wanted to do it. I did not care about performing it. It wasn't there to like, for some cultural exchange. It was literally the movement and the sound was, and it's complicated to feel at home in a culture that's not yours. So a cultural dance, I would say. So I don't know how at home I could say I felt, but
you know, it makes me think about, you know, the worlds that we've kind of traversed aesthetically and physically. And you have such amazing talent, and your body is just like, I'm in awe of how, yeah, I haven't done anything. And I'm like, you were as tight as what? And did you just relevate? Oh,
David.
Okay, great. And, you know, so within that, and you work very hard. But in thinking about how bodies are read semiotically and how that limits or creates limitations, when in a certain way it is just a body. It's just a body. That's all it is. It's a vessel. And the fact that that vessel resonates within this sonic space of drumming, or in this aesthetic space of postmodern blah blah blah, or this whatever of jazz or of Streb, it's like it's negotiating different landscapes, and it's a body.
Yeah.
The performance of it is what changes, I think, possibly the narrative.
Right. Yeah.
Or the cultural framing of that performance
Sure.
changes that narrative.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Right.
And it disempowers us. I mean, there's an awareness, of course, that we have to, I think, translate, but did you ever get any flack for it?
No. And I mean, I think what was interesting, it's not like he was set out to hire white dancers. He didn't, I'm sure he didn't, he did not want, were we all? No. I think there were 2 white people. And I think they weren't there. It was like, who came?
Yeah.
You know, and who could hold the beat he was asking, and who had the strength to do the work he wanted. I mean, it was
he teach the class as well. Wow.
And his wife also, she's a dance teacher.
Oh, okay.
So he did a big, and we drummed also. Like, we would be in the back doing doon doon and then pop out, like the whole thing.
Amazing.
And it's complicated for me, and I wrestle with it, and it's scary to talk about now because it feels like admitting something that was bad, or that was not that it was bad. I just was unaware of
What year was this?
so I moved here in 98, so 99.
Yeah,
So it's
people weren't
different.
having those dialogues.
Right. There wasn't a conversation around it. And I didn't know, I could feel something there, but I didn't know how to talk about it. Um, but, and it's interesting when you say a body is a body and there's so little choice. You can sculpt and make and starve and do whatever you do, but there's a place where your body wants to be and is happy.
Yeah.
And that body, I've never felt part of like white girl culture. Like I've never felt accepted. My legs were never thin enough. My butt was too pokey. Like there were just so many things. I was very strong. My upper body was big. Like I never felt like I belonged in those white dance spaces. I didn't have those long lines. I did not have extension.
Yeah.
So there was that feedback, but there was also just honestly, just joy. And you know what it feels like when something lights you up like that.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes. I think it's such a beautiful point because it's the internal into the external rather than the external into the internal.
Right.
That idea of like, this actually exciting sidebar kind of came up in the last workout I did with Nicole, where she was saying, okay, so you tend to have this habit of doing this or whatever. And I said, well, I'm trying to analyze it because, you're giving me information and correction. I want to get it right. And she's like, well, it's not about getting it right. It's about doing and living in that chaos and seeing what comes from that, the curiosity. And yes, there's a directionality, but if you think about just getting it right, that's kind of
who's right.
Yeah.
Whose version of right are you trying to get?
And then there's a wrong.
Yeah.
There's this binary wrong that isn't sort of negates the space of curiosity and experience of like, well, what I'm doing it kind of wrong, but oh wow, I'm finding out, oh well, that's there. And so like, what can you discover on that winding road rather than a direct line? And I think in maybe our histories, we were depending certain forms teach there's a direct line of right to wrong or wrong to right rather than just the process of getting there. But
and access, it's like there's complexity around who's right and wrong and within which context and frame. And there's also like, I think now I recognize how easily I could stumble into these different spaces. And that's that was probably a context that I wasn't tuned into, that I could just walk into an audition for a West African dance company and feel uncomplicated about it. Sort of like, Jesus.
Brilliant. I think that's brilliant. You know why? Because it just means that there's a clarity and this strange simplicity of like, hey, this is great. I don't have to worry about all of this other garbage because I'm just going into audition. Someone can say, I like you or I don't like you. Boom. It's a very simple thing. They're making that judgment, not you, right? You are offering yourself into a space. And that's the biggest thing. That reminds me of children, like offering themselves into that space. And without, and I'm going to cycle back to when we were talking about documentation or a performance of something. And during our, before we turned this on, you were telling me about this cassette tape you found of your voice singing as an 8-year-old. And it's private. Who recorded it? Could have been you.
It was me.
It was you recorded it.
It was said Christmas present for grandma.
Oh.
On the tape.
Do you remember recording it?
No.
Okay. And so there's this moment that's like, I don't have to advertise it. Oh, maybe I should put it on IG now. No, but it's really about this innocent moment of, oh, I'm doing this without, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think I think coming from you, I hear it a specific way because you are so generous with the word used is offer, but like the way you offer up yourself, for example, in the solo that I saw last weekend, the way that you are generous and not needy. There's a difference, I think, when someone inhabits that way of being in front of people. Like there's a generosity, and then there's also, I need you to see me. And it's different. They both have sort of an outward or open feel in the way that they're being received, but generous is without expectation. Generous is, I'm going to put it all out here, and it's okay if you don't want it. And that's different from, I need you to see me, which holds a different tone. And there's that the way you're describing like a child being like, here, I want to record this and I want to offer myself to this moment, or I'm giving myself uncomplicatedly to this exchange. I feel like you do. That's like, it because you are it, because you do it.
It's a process. It's a practice.
Do you think really what do you think when you're before? Well, do you say to yourself, I'm going to be generous?
No, not at all. Not at all.
What happens?
There's, I'm far from evolved. I'm just in process. There are fears of being seen. There are fears of being judged. Did you like it? I'm not going to lie. There are moments I'm like, oh my God, did you?
Of course.
And the idea is, and the practice is, how do you break it to be a little selfish and say, no, this is my experience. And that's what I'm feeding. I'm doing this because I am within that solo. There is a desire to get to this place where the body takes over or the spirit takes over. And I'm not making, and it's kind of like it's out of my body. I'm making certain kind of choices like, oh, time, whatever, but I am literally creating this line of thought and madness that is real. And it also has all of these complexities of maybe being seen, maybe just, activating a space, challenging, becoming a wild spirit. But within that, there's this unpredictability. I have no idea where it's going to go.
That is something I love so much. To me, you're describing that place where there's no longer any conversation. It's not like, oh, I feel an impulse. How do I want to be with it? Yeah. That's not what's happening. No. It's you're back there, and something else is moving you to make choices and movements, and to turn that sound up, and ideas and thoughts that and it's flow. I mean, people describe it as flow, but like when I watch it I can see it when we do authentic movement. How long have we done authentic movement together?
Oh my God, it's been, I want to say 5 years.
It's like 2018, 2019.
At least before. I want to, no, because I think it's right, because I did start in 2018. Yeah. Okay,
so 5 years. Yeah. And you can see, I mean, in me, and I can see in you, when that space between being and movement ceases to exist. And there's something so brilliant about it. And it's weird to bring into language because I talk so much about impulse as something to accompany or follow or deny.
Mhm.
But that's the place where there's no, it's not a relationship to impulse. It is impulse. It's the expression of impulse that has no, you're not considering it in any way.
And that's a thing of, in a certain way, it becomes a strange joyride.
Absolutely.
Where, and to me, that also speaks to the power of the body, because I'm not, someone's like, well, you gotta be careful on that concrete floor. And I'm like, my body will protect itself. And I trust it. I have no idea what it's going to do.
Right.
And it will do funky things, but it will protect itself. I know that. And I just, when it happens, it's beautiful because I'm almost watching from a different place.
And the
and yet I'm
intelligence,
experiencing it. And
the intelligence in it. That's what I think, that the intelligence in inhabiting those places and times, even for people who have never moved their bodies, yields some kind of growth or healing. I just do.
And that's, I think, goes back to the idea of transmission. What is that energetic space doing for you? Whether it's, sometimes we say it's cathartic, because it is about a release. And again, it depends on the place you're coming from and what it does, but how did it, so just turning it around, what did you walk away with? And how do you relate to that for yourself?
I think like when I see you in that state, my body recognizes it. My body knows it, and my body is freed up by it. Like there's an exchange when that space between you and yourself, or you and your impulse, collapses. It registers in my, I don't know, in the fleshy part, subcognitive place, as, I want to say, freedom and liberation. Like it recognizes the freedom in that. And there's a co-regulatory effect between our animal bodies that happens when I get to bear witness to that. It's tricky to say that, because then it starts to feel like a goal, like, is to get there. My goal is to get into that space and be that. And we know that like in authentic movement, when you start out with a goal, you're fucked. It's like, but it's more about like removing shit out of the way.
That's why it's a practice.
That's why it's a practice.
It's not a product, it's a practice.
Exactly.
And it's, some days you're like, I can't open the door. I cannot open the door. And it was like a few days before that we were rehearsing, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna, and I realized, oh, you're trying to open the door through a physical expectation of like what you want it to look like and what you want to do. And I realized in that moment, like once I let go of that expectation of what I want, then I'm actually, it releases me to be in it.
And you're valuing body over this,
over the brain,
over this mental, this mental construct of what your body should be like, how your body should feel, how people are going to respond to it. It's like getting out of the way. And it takes so much practice, because so few things affirm that that's worthy. So few things in our culture affirm that letting go of this and really like getting out of the way and letting your body lead is safe. One, people think it's like, well, then I'm just going to eat, a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts. No, you're not. That's your brain. That's actually, I don't think your body actually is going to head in that direction. You might eat 3, but if you're actually letting your body lead, your body's going to be like, actually don't want. I think.
Your brain is like, I want another one. Okay, maybe you're depressed and that's what you're going for. Okay.
I mean, we're getting into the land of addiction, which is a whole separate conversation, and it's tricky, I know, to talk about impulse with it. But there is something which I hear in what you're saying, which is like, if I can get out of the way, something of value will surface. Something of value from my body will take the reins. And that is, it's a practice of trust that I can get out of the way, and something of value, or something.
It's to me that there's a humanistic aspect of going back to the body as it's a body, and it's a vessel that is a place for humanity. And the beauty of watching children at times is you get to see the vulnerabilities of frailness, a range of things, or sometimes these moments of such freedom that you go, oh, it's beautiful. That's actually beautiful. And it's funny, and it's also revealing in ways. Like I remember there's a small clip of this little girl she suddenly discovers a shadow, and she's scared of it, and she keeps running away. She's it's following me. It's hilarious. You can't get away from it. So the mother, whatever, has to sing and step in and, change it a bit. But the girl is constantly.
You have a rough road ahead of you, kid. But let's work with this now.
I know. But it's like, oh my God. And you're like, you don't know what it is, but it's there. And so you establish a relationship. But what do we, in this life, for the time we're on this planet, what do we recognize about ourselves in all of its beauty and all of its deepness and all of its terror and whatever? And how do we allow ourselves to create a practice of being ourselves more so? And, as we get older, there are different forms of negotiation culturally, socially, that we either work with or we work against or we separate from. And I think those are the questions. When I'm teaching financial literacy or sustainability, it's really based on these self-awareness practices of like, okay, we're going to go through these, choose what are rate your core values from 1 to 20. What's really important to you? And now let's also look at how you spend your money. How does that reflect the other or not? How are you aware of how you're spending your money? Because we can do it and not be aware until you suddenly look at a month long worth of, oh, that's what okay, I see what I'm doing. And through that, you can make choices. But for me, the goal of this work is for people to have options, to be who they want to be, to create the life they want to create, because all of these things are tools. It's not like I'm doing this so you can be a millionaire. I'm doing this so that A, you don't fall through the cracks. B, you learn things you don't know that you should know. And C, you negotiate those things. It's like, well, what's your risk factor here? How risk averse are you when playing with stocks or losing money? Or how, their assignment next week is, you're doing a little presentation on what home means to you. What are the values of home? Because we're talking about housing and home ownership. And, whether they're going to own homes or not, it's like,
irrelevant.
Irrelevant. It's really about, where are you living? What are the choices? Oh, you want to live with someone, or you don't. You want to live alone. Great. Let's clarify. What does that mean, and how does that affect your knowledge of, I'm not in a good place. I'm in a bad, I don't like my roommate. How is that impacting on you being who you want to be?
Right.
And then, or I can't really afford this apartment, but I'm not. So you have to make other choices. What are those choices? And where are those choices? Where does that make you want to lead to? because it's not just getting out of the apartment. It's like, what do I need? Is it a big spacious apartment to feel like, yeah, those would be nice, but is it, I was part of, I'm part of this sort of research group called Sociable Weavers, and it's based on these birds, sociable weavers, that create nests that other birds end up populating and inhabiting over the country. So they keep building nests, new ones, and then other birds take them over. And so it's almost like creating a community. And there are these huge things that can exist, these communities hanging from a tree of, like, you know,
Shared nest.
shared like 20, 30 different nests within one thing. And it's really kind of phenomenal. And how we think about housing. And also we're looking at how do you address the issue of housing for artists at this time in a place where it's ridiculously expensive. And, you know, how can you sustain art making, or what's the quality of art making when you don't have a home, or you spend most of your time making money to pay for the home?
Right.
And so what are the alternatives? And it's beyond like, oh, we want to help you buy a home. It's like, you know what? You buy a home, that's a lot of responsibility and it's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, I can go touring now because I have a home. No.
No, because the water heater broke and now you need a new roof.
Right.
But you're in like Sydney dancing.
And you know what? You bought that home. That's great. Now you have to make sure you can afford to pay the taxes.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are pros and cons. And there's also this idea that it's not one size fits all.
Yeah.
How do we create these dialogues of desire and need, and then create new organic systems of exchange?
I love the idea of, like, I mean, money is such an interesting door to go through for self-growth and self-awareness work. But so I feel like any conversation in there, you're going to start picking up on your patterns and what you value and where energy is really going. But there's something to me that it gets lost in that money conversation often, which you just brought up, and it's supporting space and resources so that you can put energy where you want. Like, what do you actually, if you take on this thing, it means there's this much less energy for your art making, because you're going to be taxed mentally, emotionally, spiritually by the weight of this responsibility. So understanding, like, I actually need this much energy to support my own creative process. And that means like having a really tiny apartment, but having outside space. Or like when I see your situation where you have a place in New York that you rent a room that's beautiful, and you also have a place where you go that's out in the country, and you've like fine-tuned, like, what do you actually need? You do need both, it seems, or you tell me what you need.
I do. They're both, and actually the place in Stockbridge I consider it my studio. Because it's a place where I can breathe and think differently.
Yeah.
And it's in that space that I do better work. And some people rent a studio, they go there and they are able to focus because there's nothing else around them, or they have all their equipment. That's what that is for me. I don't need a dance studio for that. That's not really the way I'm thinking about it. And it reminds me of but there was a period in 2011, 2012 where I started, it's kind of like this strange creative renaissance. Personally. Yeah. And it happened because of two things. One, I got this job at Credit Suisse where I'd been a temp there for a while, and I was hired. And they only hired me for 3 days a week. I could add more hours if I wanted to, but technically my base was 3 days a week. And I got full benefits.
Wow.
Health, pension.
Et tu parlais français pendant?
Oui, but it's pas nécessaire. Credit Suisse. It was here.
Okay.
So that was great. And then I got this job in France.
Nice.
parle français en France,
Ah,
right?
super.
So, and I was going back and forth, but I had this time because I was paid enough to live and cover my rent, and I had benefits,
Mhm.
and I was going to France here and there, and we were traveling, and it had paid well enough, and I was like, oh, and so I started feeling creative, and I loved the job in France. It was the first week we were there, I thought, these are amazing people.
Was it dance company?
It was a theater company. It was Alain Bouffard.
Oh.
And so it's an international cast. Will Rawls was one of the Americans.
Mhm.
Then this woman, Doro Munyaneza, who's actually performing at Nyla in a few weeks. Another one from South Africa. Another one from the Côte d'Ivoire. And then
Yeah, keep going.
and
I'm gonna pay my meter.
um
You were in what part of France?
we were in Nîmes in the south.
Oh
It was
wow.
really beautiful.
Oh
and
my God.
but it was also, we were just improvising around these themes. And I just loved the energy that everyone brought. And I felt like I hadn't been creative in that same way for a long time.
Mm.
And we were there for 2 weeks. And it just opened my heart. And so I ended up, like 2012, I created a number of works that I'm like, wow, that was interesting. Well, that's, and I just
Were
went
they
into
solos?
well, no, duet. One was a solo, and then that was a creation of Venus, and then another one was a duet called Velvet I did with dancer Malcolm Lowe, and then I created this piece Hunger that I did with Oakley.
Oh.
And so to me, those were like, and it just, oh, I have this idea, let's do this. And it's very simple.
Wow.
And I was also very chill. I went into the studio. Malcolm was like an hour late. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, whatever.
So
I'm not
what?
like hungry. And so this idea of
Like what
creation,
made that possible?
The less amount of stress, the breath
Yeah.
of life, the
Yeah.
breath of life, and also being in France is a whole different rhythm of living. Of like, I'm gonna have my cafe, or I'll have dinner.
You're gonna have lunch from 12 to 2. Everything's shut
literally,
down.
we all we all broke. We had lunch together in the theater. We had the theater to ourselves. It was
And a
all
proper
theater.
lunch.
We had a proper lunch.
Americans don't know how to do it. I know.
And it's so, you're living, you walk in, hi,
You're
ça va, bon?
resourced.
Yes. And but you're human. You're human. You're like engaging with people as opposed to, okay, I'm here and like da 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 da, I'll meet you at the coffee, da 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 da. And I think there was, for me, that sense of change of rhythm, which prior had been a bit intense. In different ways, and
it's not like you weren't busy. I mean, that's what's interesting to me. It's like those spaces where the creativity just turns on and it's easy and direct is not necessarily because you have all this wide open nothing space. It's that you're supported and nourished, or that something's been shifted, like even living in another, like the way you are able to see things differently or tune into them.
And so that's where I'm, I think that's a space I want to, I mean, creatively, I don't know how I feel. A lot of things are shifting, but I think that goes back to knowing what the environment what environment do you need to really fully breathe.
Inhabit yourself.
Because when I'm overworked, then I just get away from me, stay. It's all very protective, and it's like
contracted.
Yeah, and then when I get up to Stockbridge, it's like, oh, okay, I have the space, I can breathe. What am I doing? It becomes much thoughtful. I mean,
same. I
mean, what would be an ideal situation for you? I don't know.
I mean, I feel like I'm kind of in it in many ways. I'm in the thick of family, so it's hard. My demands are showing up for my kids, and I realized just yesterday, oh, this is a completely different chapter from the way I'm used to showing up. And I need to adjust. Like now my days are a little more spacious,
Oh,
but now from like 4 to 10 is dense and demanding.
wow.
Whereas like it used to be the
Opposite.
opposite. And so now I feel this weird, I need to take a nap so that I can show up.
I know. I
It's
know
like
that feeling, girl. It's like,
not enough naps.
it's like just 20 minutes, please.
I mean, 20 minutes. I'll set my alarm for 20 minutes. Earplugs, I'm out.
Yeah. It's just, but it's needed. And
I
that's,
have to.
I mean, again,
You're a
this-
napper.
well, I was not beforehand, but now I am now.
Sorry. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm like, but it's your body.
Yeah.
Your body's like, mother, we need to shut down.
Yeah.
Shut
I
down.
know.
We got to reboot.
Reboot.
So, because otherwise these programs
It
aren't
all
gonna
works.
work.
Yeah, it
They're
works
not gonna
better
work.
when you turn it off and turn
They
it back
glitch.
on.
Yeah. I mean, and we don't, and that's the thing, again, you think it's European, the alternative cultures where they're like, no,
Siesta, baby.
we take a break. We gotta take a break. We're closing shop. We're gonna have a meal.
Yeah.
And even if it's like, we're not napping, we're like, I'm not.
Engaging.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And that's what I think I miss
Yeah.
more so. That's why this whole digital thing, it's like people can find you all over. I'm like, no, don't trigger me.
Yeah.
Don't. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, and so how does this fit in? How do you feel like these conversations fit in with the work you do? I mean, because you're really crossing these boundaries of somatic, but also systems. I mean, much more complex systems of engaging. I feel like it's not like, oh, lay there and just breathe and no.
No, and I think
There's-
my current interest and the reason I even do these podcasts is because my fascination now is within relationship, being with, and what patterns are elicited by being with a person, actually being with them. So we do that through the practice of authentic movement, where we start to pay attention to what patterns show up when I realize I'm being seen, what patterns show up when I see someone, because I feel like I've spent a lot of my own personal work, and that was sort of what was happening around meditation and self-inquiry and therapy, and those are not within the context of relationship. Relationship to self,
Yeah,
for sure, but not this.
Yeah.
And I think I seek more understanding of like, where does liberation lie inside this context? Like when we talk about freeing ourselves, getting out of the way so that this sort of bodily intelligence can lead, or there's something that moves us towards something and we trust it. When we're in a relationship, there's so many weird patterns that form around that impulse. From childhood, from the moment you come out of your mother, there's all kinds of ways that we learn to protect and connect. And that's normal.
And it depends on your personality.
Completely. And your biology and your heredity and all kinds of things. And I do think that through authentic movement, it's kind of like the most direct way to pay, if you bring that lens in of relationship, to recognize what's happening in the moment.
It's funny, as you were talking, it reminded me of the very simple exercise, Marina Abramovich.
Yes.
Just looking in someone's eyes. That's all it is. And people are like, oh my God, what was that like? You can do this at home. This is not special equipment.
No, I love that too, that there's that meditation. Me and my husband used to do it, where we would sit, but I could dissociate because I wasn't really in my body. Because I would just be staring in his eyes like,
wow.
I could do this and like not only lose my body, but lose his.
Wow.
So it was intense and interesting, and also didn't bring me into more.
When you say lose your body and lose him, where would you go?
I would just became eyeballs. Like Do you know that feeling? I don't know if you've had that feeling. Like,
You mean
if
it's
I,
just
it's why
looking?
meditation isn't a good support for me.
It's just like looking. You're just like,
You're just staring,
this
and
is
and then I lose
wow.
a sense of my form, which is okay. Some people jam on that, like
Yeah,
that's what they like.
yeah.
I
Interesting.
don't.
Oh, so now you bring me to this line. We're just going a little bit long, but
Yes.
you're bringing me to this moment when we were at CPR one day and we were doing AM and we were duetting and I remember there was an issue with family visiting and you were really overwhelmed and so on. You were like, and part of it was like nobody was seeing you. You were doing things for everybody else and no one was seeing you. And there was a point.
Is that when you came up?
Yeah, I came up to you because my eyes were closed and I came up mentioning the time that we first met when I was doing AM and I did something and that was the first time I remember you almost like crying at something I did, but from then it was like this idea of you really seeing.
Yeah.
But then also this feeling of, I don't know if you remember that day, but it was like, you were just like, I just mean, you were like doing this work and not getting the.
And I don't know that I even said that. I think you moved over
Mm-hmm.
and then we came together
Mm-hmm.
and you hugged me and our timer went off
Mm-hmm.
and you kept hugging me.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, and I think that is the same body movement that I feel like you lead with, that you've led with, that you've been with in your life, which is like, I don't know that you had a conscious thought of like what I needed, but some part of you felt it and moved from it and met me. And yeah, no. And I think I cried for a while.
And you needed it. It was also compacted. It was very compacted for you because there were, I think that period of time where you were managing a lot.
Yeah.
You're also a manager. You were such a manager. You were such a manager. And I'm like, I want to take you away where you don't have to manage shit. That's what I want to do. That's that spa day. We're going to do that spa day.
I mean, I would love it. It's hard to fall into that embrace too. It takes a minute.
I know. You're like,
I'll be like, okay, we're hugging. Right. And then it takes I'm slow. You talk about being slow. I'm slow to thaw. It takes time.
We all are in different ways.
That's my slow spot. I get there, but it's like it takes.
Yeah, no, it does. It's I mean, I think that's because of the rhythm that you normally live in. If you lived in a different
genetics.
Oh, it's partially genetics.
Partially. It's in my tissue. You can think of like all the way down to your cells. Like.
But do you feel like? Did you say you lived in Belgium for a while? France. And did you feel like you were different in your body in that time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Don't you think we're different when you speak a different language though? You like inhabit a different personality.
Yeah. And it's also, you inhabit a different personality, but you also go, oh, right, I can just sit at this cafe crêpe. It's like you're just like, okay, boom, and you walk through and it's like, oh, okay.
You're co-regulating to a whole different rhythm.
Exactly. And I feel that's partially where I think like you need a whole different rhythm.
Well, that's the upstate place we take care of.
Yeah.
It just unfurls.
Like you really do feel that when you.
Oh yeah.
Oh, great.
I can't. I remember the first time I went and I just stopped. And it was almost like I felt like my ears were going like this. It was so silent. And it was like, New York is so fucking loud. I don't think people know how fucking loud it is on the streets. The screeching of people, groups of teenagers. It's assaulting. I want to wear earplugs in my life. That's how it feels. But yeah, you go up there and your whole body just does something different.
I know.
There's width and breath.
Oh, that's so good. I'm glad you have that.
I'm glad you have that.
Well, I'm glad we both have it.
I know.
Because God, can you imagine who would be if we didn't have
No,
it?
I don't think we'd survive or be here.
Yeah.
We would have left.
I know. I don't know. I would be really a twisted piece of metal mess
Yeah.
on the ground. I don't, yeah. And even now those are the good questions.
Yeah.
Where, what, how.
What a blessing that we have that.
I know. We're blessed. I'm blessed to have you.
I'm blessed to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this.
This was fun.
This was fun. It was nice to do this with you in person.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to David and I hope you have a chance to see him perform. If he's coming to a theater or a location near you, do yourself a favor and go see him. He's not really on social media a ton, but you can find out more about where he's performing on Instagram through davidthomson.nyc. And you can follow up and find out more about him on his website, davidhamiltonthompson.com. Thanks for listening. Until next time.